A Mortal's Journey to Immortality Episode 253. In the previous episode, after returning from his meeting with Violet Spirit, Han Li was deep in thought. He knew that the journey into Devilfall Valley would be filled with peril. As he flew alongside Cultivator Song, she questioned whether a mere core formation cultivator could survive in a place where even Nascent Soul masters had perished. Han Li's response was calm yet heavy. Survival depended not only on strength, but on restraint. Greed, he said, was the true killer within Devilfall Valley. He warned her that without a safe path or a means to leave, anyone who entered was doomed. Yet, he also understood the lure of the Spirit Kindle Fruit, a rare treasure that could help him and others break through their cultivation limits. Han Li explained Violet Spirit's burning ambition, born from her painful past, and revealed his own resolve to seek the fruit despite the danger. Days later, within the Drifting Cloud sect, Han Li secluded himself in a hidden chamber. There, surrounded by layers of protective barriers, he confronted a lingering problem from his last battle, an eerie azure flame clinging to his flying swords. Using his own purple flames, he attempted to suppress it, but the mysterious fire resisted every effort. The clash of the two forces filled the chamber with blinding light and heat. Then, without the slightest hesitation, he pinched off the azure flames from the flying swords. And episode 253 is starting. Han Li pinched the azure flames at the tip of the sword and held them in his inflamed fingers. Immediately, he felt his fingertips grow numb as a massive force radiated from the azure flames, pushing back against his grasp. Despite this, the azure flames stubbornly clung to the sword, resisting his attempts to hold them. Han Li froze for a moment, analyzing the situation, and then an idea struck him. He widened his flaming hand, allowing the purple flames alone to envelop the azure flames. For a full 15 minutes, his fingers emitted blinding violet flames, intertwining with the azure light in pulsating waves. When he finally withdrew, the purple flames vanished completely, leaving only a dazzling, translucent ember of azure flame in his hand. This ember was far more complex than Han Li had initially anticipated. Although the violet apex flames might have the potential to contend with it, refining these azure flames was proving difficult. After careful thought, Han Li raised his hand, pointing at the flying sword before him. With muffled claps of thunder, the sword suddenly erupted with arcs of golden lightning. As the lightning struck the azure ember, it was completely absorbed, growing brighter and swelling to the size of a small egg. Han Li's eyes glowed with a vivid blue light as he observed this process, his expression wavering as he calculated the power at his disposal. After a moment, he exhaled and made a decision, drawing in the remaining purple flame from the flying sword. With the suppressive influence of the purple apex flames gone, the azure flames on the sword flared immediately, covering the entire blade. Han Li winced in pain as the treasure bonded with his soul. Yet he pressed on. He flicked his fingers, sending streaks of azure sword energy toward the flame. Remarkably, the sword streaks were absorbed entirely, just like the divine Devilbane lightning had been absorbed previously. He continued to channel his spiritual power into repeated attacks, forcing the azure ember to roar with brilliant, surging light. By the time the flames stabilized, Han Li had already used up a third of his spiritual power. Seeing the azure fireball now significantly enlarge, Han Li ceased his attacks and beckoned the sword energy toward him. With a gust of wind, the bamboo cloud swarm sword detached from the flames, circled once, and landed safely in his hands. He examined the translucent blade, now completely free of the surrounding fire, and smiled. He muttered to himself that although the flames were miraculous, they had a limit to how much spiritual energy they could absorb. Once pushed beyond that limit, they could be manipulated to his advantage. Turning his attention back to the azure fireball, Han Li lightly tapped it, sending a sliver of his spiritual sense into it. The fireball shivered and slowly began to revolve, pulsing with radiant light. Han Li tried to control its movement, but at first, it only swayed slightly. Eventually, he managed to make it float a few meters in the air at an angle. He stroked his chin thoughtfully, realizing that although he could forcefully manipulate the fireball with the azure essence sword chi it had absorbed, This method was imperfect, unlike the celestial ice flames. These azure flames had not been refined, and controlling them would be less precise. After some consideration, Han Li reached into his storage pouch and pulled out a perfectly smooth rib bone and a faint yellow bottle. These were items related to the Bone Sage's Jade Slip, which recorded the profound yin arts and a tool previously used to absorb demon beast souls. He opened the bottle, releasing a cloud of black energy, which he manipulated with his spiritual sense, infusing it into the rib bone. The bone immediately glowed with a sinister black light. Floating in the air, Han Li pressed the bone to his forehead and quickly reviewed the profound yin arts, searching for the specific yin fire lightning technique. This technique, while its name seemed ordinary, was in fact a refinement method for powerful lightning beads, similar to the heavenly lightning seed he had encountered during his chi condensation stage. These yin fire lightning beads could release destructive power comparable to the heaven-wide corpse fire. They required stabilizing materials, were highly energy intensive to refine, and were consumable single-use items. Previously, even the Zenith Yin and the Bone Sage could not successfully refine them due to the complexity and required control over lightning-based spiritual energy. Now, with the azure flames at his disposal, Han Li realized he could bypass many of the original limitations. Though he could not use the profound yin arts directly, his knowledge and cultivation allowed him to adapt the technique to refine the azure flames into similarly powerful lightning beads. This would provide him with a new, devastating weapon for the looming war. Han Li then gathered common materials from his storage pouch, arranging them carefully before the flickering fireball. With a serious expression, he raised both hands, summoning arcs of lightning to strike the azure fireball. These strikes initiated the refinement process, transforming the volatile flame into a controllable, explosive weapon. Meanwhile, at the Drifting Cloud Sect encampment, Lu Luo sat motionless in the main hall, his expression unreadable. Several core formation disciples, including the red-clothed Cultivator Song, stood before him with apprehensive expressions. Lu Luo asked calmly about Han Li's seclusion. They explained that Han Li had remained in seclusion for 2 months, guarded continuously by Junior Marshal Sister Song and Marshal Nephew Duan. Lu Luo sighed, explaining that Han Li had entered seclusion to prepare for the coming war and had requested not to be disturbed. However, with the Molan forces nearly fully assembled, a critical meeting among high-grade cultivators was imminent. They had requested Han Li's presence, emphasizing his importance, as the meeting would shape the final decisions for the battle. The disciples hesitated, concerned about disrupting Han Li's crucial preparations. But Lu Luo insisted that the meeting could no longer be postponed. "What's going on, everyone?" At that moment, a soft voice was clearly heard throughout the hall. When Lu Luo heard this, he wore a face of delight. And that wraps up this episode. In this part, we saw Han Li confronting the incredible power of the mysterious azure flames that clung stubbornly to his sword. Despite the overwhelming energy that initially resisted his control, he carefully combined his own purple flames with the azure fire, experimenting with different techniques to gradually refine and tame it. We watched as he skillfully absorbed the golden lightning into the fireball, allowing it to grow and stabilize, before finally using his spiritual sense to manipulate it and turn it into a powerful weapon. His patience, intelligence, and precise control over his abilities were all on display, demonstrating just how resourceful he is when faced with challenges that at first seem impossible to overcome. This episode also highlights an important theme: preparation and adaptability are as crucial as raw strength in Han Li's journey. By carefully analyzing the limitations and potential of the azure flames, he was able to create a new form of devastating weapon for the coming war, showing that strategy, ingenuity, and foresight are key parts of his success. At the same time, we see how even the most powerful abilities require careful management, and how Han Li's perseverance and creativity allow him to turn obstacles into advantages. If you enjoyed this episode or found it exciting, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel so you can receive notifications for the latest episodes and follow Han Li's journey every step of the way. Thank you very much for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video for more action, strategy, and adventure.